Morning, guys. It's a Wednesday morning here at Zenith, and we're here working on a 64 Cloud 3, trying to get it finished up for the owner who's going to be picking it up Thursday afternoon. So the owner brought the car to me, and one of his main concerns was an engine noise that had him very worried, to the point where he had actually considered doing an LS swap on this car, believe it or not. I drove the car with him, and I said I'd take a look during the service, and believe it or not, we found the problem, and it was not an internal engine noise at all. Instead, it was an exhaust leak. Well, as you can see, I found the noise, and I also pulled off the exhaust manifold. This is your typical A-bank exhaust manifold on a V8. And it didn't have any cracks or anything, but at this flange here, I could just barely make out a noise. I had to try to do this by myself. Couldn't have anybody revving the car, of course, but I did find the noise. The noise only came at higher RPMs, but it was coming from this flange right here, and it wasn't the typical like exhaust noise that we know and love from manifolds and exhaust pipes. It was more of an engine internal noise, and the reason was right here. These guys here are aftermarket exhaust manifold gaskets, and you can see how thin they are. This is what should be on the car, this copper one here on the left, but look at how thick this gasket is. Look at how skinny and thick. So anyway, I probably saved the owner thousands and thousands of dollars here and kept the originality of the car for an exhaust leak. Here's what it looks like on the inside with the exhaust manifold removed. Quite a few leaks here. I'm going to probably go ahead and replace the valve cover gaskets while we're at it. One other cool thing to point out while we're at it is this heat shield. What this was designed to do was to keep heat away from the heater hoses and also the brake fluid reservoir and plumbing. These are Cloud 3 only, but if we get Cloud 2s in, we try to upsell these and fit these while they're in the shop, because they just, of course, make such a big difference. These studs here are not original, but in order to make them correct looking, we'd be at quite a few hours to try to manufacture something. They're already 5/16ths, or sorry, 3/8, and they need to be 5/16ths. The lengths of these studs also made it very hard to try to remove the front pipe. They're about 3/4 as long as they need to be. These reach nuts and these studs are the correct thing and what's supposed to be there, but you can see what happens is the ends start to rust, and then they start to rust internally. And I mean, these will get so seized that even using heat and impact guns will not separate them. So we're going to go ahead and supply a refinished set of reach nuts and a replacement stud to the build. In order to retrofit these heat shields, you're going to need a special set of reach nuts for the exhaust manifold, and they go on the rear upper stud and the front upper stud. This is the front upper stud next to the rear to show the difference. We also make these and have them available, as well as these heat shields. But yeah, I just thought I'd point that out. It's not just the heat shield. You do need some specialty hardware to fit them. I forgot to point something out with respect to the valve cover, and that is you should be able to see a little bit of gasket between the valve cover and the cylinder head. And the reason I'm condemning these valve covers is the obvious leak, so we can see that they're leaking all the way down. But the other issue is we can't tighten them anymore. They've been tightened all the way down, and there's just zero gasket left. All right, guys, so we got the valve covers now ready to go on. I've got two prepared with new bushings and gaskets. Here's what it looks like. And that's kind of about how much gasket you want to see between the cylinder head and the valve cover. All right, so here's what the old ones look like. This was the one off the A bank. I'll flip it over and show you here. So yeah, no gasket left there at all, just completely torqued out, and you can see just kind of how thin they are, and you know, they were just leaking. So another thing about these, I've had people before comment about the shape of the bushings. The new bushings, you know, they look like this sitting in the cylinder head, so there's sometimes a lot of confusion about why the bushings don't look like this, and that's because, you know, eventually the oil has made them swollen and then they've gone, you know, kind of rock hard. I'll probably have to bust these out with pliers. They're like plastic now. So that's not how they're supposed to look. This is how the bushings look when they're new and installed, and here's how they look with the new gaskets. One other thing I've been asked before is, well, how do we get the script to look like this after we paint it? And that's pretty easy. We use the DA sander. We mask it off, use a DA sander, and just go over that, and that recreates the badge. One more look at these valve covers before we put them on. You can see, you know, we've refinished them. We keep valve covers in stock so that when we're doing service work, we can have a set ready to go and not have to try to media blast and paint the ones that we take off. So back on the car they go, and I'll update you when we get that done. All right guys, so we got our new valve covers on there, and looking from underneath the fender, we got our exhaust manifold gaskets put on there as well. And I've got my favorite sealant on these, which is just, you know, simple old wheel bearing grease. The wheel bearing grease will allow the gasket to spread, and then when the vehicle fires up and runs and everything gets hot, the wheel bearing grease will actually turn into carbon, and that'll help us seal. Okay guys, here's how we ended up with the A-bank exhaust manifold. Got everything on there. All new hardware, washers, gasket on the flange, and we saw how I treated all the exhaust manifold gaskets with some wheel bearing grease for sealing purposes. So this is kind of the end of the video, and we fixed this problem, and I know, having tried tightening up the exhaust manifold before, that this was indeed the issue. So the gnarly engine noise is gone, and this car can continue to live with its original motor. Thanks for watching.